The Guinness Book of Records was a promotional stunt that became an international phenomenon. It all started with 1,000 freebies left on tables in pubs.
In 1859, Thomas Austin of Barwon Park in Victoria released 24 wild rabbits from England for hunting. The rest is history. We'll explain why.
Fraktur is surely the world's most emotionally loaded type font. It's been called the Nazi font. We'll take a walk through its checkered history.
The Macarena is a Spanish dance song by Los Del Rio, and it became an international cultural phenomenon in the 1990s. Now, if you're over 35, you're probably already cringing. We'll share that cringe with the rest of our listeners.
Hello and welcome to REMORANDOM, a celebration of everything interesting and uncommon knowledge. I'm Remo Dufresne.
And I'm Claudia Chanshaw. Hey, you, Remo.
You weren't sure who you were there for a minute, but did I confuse you with the timbre of my voice?
You know, I had to look at an old American Express statement to see what my name was. You know, I was going through these old papers and you go, oh, I don't need that anymore. It's, you know, it's beyond 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is. 2008 American Express statements. I'm sitting in front of the telly, ripping them up into tiny bits of paper. And I see one and go, oh, hang on a sec. In May of 2008, I shopped at the Remo General Store online.
Oh, what did you buy? Banana protector, banana guard. Remember those? Or what do you think it was?
I think it was probably T-shirts. It's in May, so I'm not shopping for Chrissy presents because I also used to buy them for Christmas presents. So I don't know, maybe I needed
extremely well organized records, and I'll get back to you and I'll tell you what it was. Yeah,
that's hilarious. I know I bought a lot of T-shirts.
Well, I had an interesting week. You know, remember last week when we kind of screwed up our recording a little bit? You lost your internet, and then we picked it up where we left off. But it was like beyond my skill level to combine the first bit with the second bit because I ended up with two Claudias, like you and your evil twin. And so the video editor thought that there were three people in it and not two, and it was kind of beyond me and beyond my comprehension of what ChatGPT was telling me to do to fix it. But I have managed to hack a sort of a compromise. So for the first 10 minutes of that episode is basically just you and me in a split screen with no like fancy transitions or different scenes. So that's okay. Just
okay.
You know,
but it works. The communication is clear.
It works. It's and I guess if it happens again, we'll just start again. I can never get enough of you. I can never get enough of you.
Oh, look, isn't that nice?
And to hear that Amex story again, like put it this way: don't let the internet die today, okay? Because I don't want to hear that.
Okay, all right, I'll try not to. Because that whole time, your face was going, and you remember Max Headroom? It was going, beep, beep, and I was getting these lines across your face. So I thought, please don't, not today, not today. Stay with us, internet, stay with us.
What else did I want to tell you about before we get into our stories? It's interesting where ideas come from for the books. Lots of email suggestions from people in the sauna or on the street, and even Facebook sometimes delivers. On footpaths and sidewalks and railway stations, you often see yellow strips of vinyl or concrete or whatever. Do you know what they are?
They're for vision impaired people.
You see, you knew that. I didn't know that, and Melanie didn't know that either.
Yeah, you see them at the railway station and also the light rail so that they don't go too close to the edge, or they know they're approaching the edge. Yeah,
and they're bumpy enough that they can be felt not just with a white cane but through shoes, and little circles.
Exactly.
Means one thing, and the lines mean go in this direction. So there's kind of different.
So the round ones, it looks kind of like inverse yellow Pirelli. It's got those round circles.
Lego blocks anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, for today, I wanted to tell you or talk about the Guinness Book of Records, or Guinness World Records, as it is now referenced. It started in 1955, but back up 3 or 4 years, kind of the origin story is sort of interesting. This bloke, Sir Hugh Beaver, on, I don't know why this date is like so specific, but on the 10th of November 1951, he went on a shooting party in Ireland. So Sir Hugh was the chairman of Guinness, the brewery,
The
the beer
beer.
company, the
Yeah.
stout. Yeah.
Okay.
So after he missed a shot trying to kill a bird called the golden plover, he got involved in this heated argument with his hunting buddies about which was the fastest game bird in Europe. Was it the golden plover or the red grouse? As an aside, it's neither of those, but that's another story.
Wrong.
So that night, he realized that he couldn't actually find the answer easily or at all in the current reference books. So he reckoned, quite rightly as it happened, that there's probably all sorts of other questions that are debated nightly in pubs voraciously and viciously by punters, and there was no book in the world to settle those arguments. So he spoke to someone who worked for him at Guinness, a bloke called Christopher Chataway, and Chataway recommended a couple of uni friends, Norris and Ross McWhirter, who were twins, and they'd been running this fact-finding agency in London. So the twin brothers were commissioned to compile what would eventually be the Guinness Book of Records in August 1954. And after 13 90-hour weeks, they finally published the first ever Guinness Book of Records on the 27th of August 1955. So it was quite a modest looking thing with a plain green cover. 1,000 copies were printed and left on tables in pubs. So they were
Trivia night.
very, very popular. The books were so popular that they all got nicked by the punters. So Beaver knew that he was on to a good thing. And so the first proper edition of the book topped the bestseller lists in the UK that very Christmas in 1955. And the following year, the book was launched internationally. And since then, it's sold, 100 million copies. It's in its 69th or 70th year, published in 100 countries, 37 languages, and 53,000 records in its database. So, so today Guinness is this global brand, offices in London, New York, Beijing, Tokyo, and Dubai, and they've got museums and television, TV series, etc., and so forth, as you can appreciate. But it's a little bit pay to play though now. If you've got a record in the back of your head, the greatest number of ping pong balls that I can fit into my mouth, you can approach them and pay them a certain amount of money because they, have to provide you with the official inspectors and so forth.
The adjudicator. Yeah.
Yeah. But those payments range from $12,000 US to 500,000 in some cases. I don't know why. When we organised TEDx Sydney in whatever year that was, maybe 2014, we tried to break the Guinness World Record for this biggest number of people simultaneously playing the spoons.
I was there. I still have my spoons.
Oh, you do?
I have them. Yep.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful woman who was
tick, tick,
playing the
tick,
spoons.
playing the spoons. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't remember what needed to be counted that didn't get counted. Anyway, we didn't get the official record. We had a lot of fun anyway. But
yeah, that was fun.
so it is blurring the distinction a little bit between what's content and what's advertising and
Advertorial.
But, they've got away with it so far. But yeah, so I'm a little bit jealous and aspirational of Guinness World Records. I'd like to think that, Memorandum could become a baby version of that, and B, for interesting, what Guinness is for remarkable. But, that's just me.
You never know, Remo. You got to think big. You do have to
Yeah.
think big. So the idea for the rabbit-proof fence started in the late 19th century when wild rabbits that were introduced to Australia for hunting purposes multiplied very, very quickly and became a pest and caused widespread environmental damage. So, domesticated rabbits had been introduced to Australia by the First Fleet in
Mm.
1788, but they became a problem in about 1859 when a fellow called Thomas Austin of Barwon Park in Victoria released 24 wild rabbits from England for hunting. And his wisdom was the introduction of a few rabbits could do little harm and might provide a touch of home in addition to a spot of hunting. You're right. So those 24 bunnies would produce tens of thousands and then ultimately hundreds of millions. And in
Mm.
2022, there was a study of genomic data that confirmed that Australia's feral rabbit population was indeed entirely descended from the rabbits introduced by Mr. Austin.
Oh,
Ooh,
what a
ah.
numbskull. I hope one of his descendants isn't listening to this. How
What a
shameful.
dingbat. What a dingbat. So the construction of a rabbit-proof fence began in 1901, and the fence is not a continuous structure, but it's a series of three fences put together. And when it was completed, the rabbit-proof fence, which includes all three fences, stretched for 3,256 kilometres. So when it was
Mm.
finally completed in 1907, the 1,833 kilometre number one fence was the longest unbroken fence in the world. Now, is that in the Guinness Book of World Records? We'll have
Yeah,
to look it up.
probably
So
is.
the fences were initially successful in containing the spread of rabbits to some extent, but over time, those wascally wabbits found ways to breach the barriers, and the fences required maintenance and repairs continually. In the 1950s, they came up with maybe more effective biological controls, and that was myxomatosis. So the
Mm.
focus kind of shifted away from the fences. So while it plays a crucial role in the history of pest control in Australia, the fence is also remembered for another reason. And in the 1930s, the fence gained international recognition due to the journey of three Indigenous girls, Molly Craig, Daisy Barungu, and Gracie Fields, who had escaped from the Moree River native settlement, which is north of Perth, and they trekked over 1,600 kilometres along the fence to try and rejoin their families at Jigalong, all the while being pursued by white law enforcement and a black
Mm.
tracker. The story, as told by Doris Pilkington Garamara's book Follow the Rabbit Proof Fence in 1996, was later turned into the film that we were all probably familiar with, and that is Rabbit Proof
Mm.
Fence from
Yeah.
2002, directed by Philip Noyce. And the film illustrates the official child removal policy that existed in Australia between about 1905 and 1967, and its victims are now, of course, known as the Stolen Generation. That cruel policy was effectively state-sanctioned kidnapping, and for the purpose of forcing assimilation of mixed-race Aboriginal kids into now what's universally condemned for the trauma, the loss of culture, the loss of language, and the terrible damage it did to the stolen children and their
Mm.
families.
Mm.
Now, I don't know if you eat rabbit meat. Do you? Are you a rabbit meat eater? Very popular.
I when I grew up, we would occasionally eat it in some sort of tomato, in like
Oh
Italian-esque
yeah,
kind of
Italian side
way.
with
Yeah,
black
yeah,
olives. Yeah,
yeah.
coniglio, isn't it?
Mm.
Rabbit in
I
Italian,
think so.
coniglio.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice dish. Well, it was very popular in Britain and Australia in colonial times, and then it continued up until the end of rationing at the end of World War II. But the fellow who got the rabbits was called a rabbito, and he
Mm.
would catch and skin the bunnies, and he'd take them to the streets or to the markets, and he was called a rabbito because he'd go in the street and go rabbito, and people knew to come out and get their bunny. And of course, the rabbito legacy lives on with the South Sydney Rugby League team, because the Rabbitoh is its identity and logo. So go the bunnies.
Go the Bunnies. I've always been a Bunnies supporter since I was a little boy playing at halftime during the Bunnies games with my school.
Yeah.
So
Ah,
yeah, no, that's cute. That story had everything. It's got
yeah.
pest
Tragic history.
control, tragic Indigenous treatment, history, and end with a little bit of
Pop bit of sport.
a recipe and some sport. So covered all the gamuts. Thanks for that one, Claudia. And fences and walls. Down with fences and walls. They seem to be in the news also these days, very much.
Ah,
So,
yes. Yes, those borders.
okay, what's my next thing? Well, it's kind of related to what I was alluding to there at the very end, and that is I want to talk about a typeface. We previously, in Memorandum 1, we talked about Comic Sans,
We
which has
did.
been called the most hated font in the world. I think we've even chatted about it in the
We did the
podcast.
much maligned Comic
The much
Sans.
maligned.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to talk to you about another font. This one is called Fraktur, and it's probably the world's most emotionally loaded font. And Fraktur is that black letter fragmented thing that you see, the New York Times, banner, headline, newspaper on the printed thing, or even on the top of the website, is set in Fraktur, and it's from the Latin word fractura, which means to break, because the letters are kind of broken into pieces. And the reason why, the raison d'etre for that, is that when monks using quills in the early 16th century would get to O's and U's and C's, they could never kind of make them all kind of look the same. So they sort of broke them into three pieces, and that's why an O is like one, two, three. And so that
Yep.
way they could make them all look, consistent. And so that's gave it this distinctive fragmented appearance. And during the Renaissance, it was just widely used for German texts. So for centuries, it was a standard typeface in German-speaking regions, representing that sort
Yes.
of sense of national identity. But also, in parallel, by the end of the 16th century, more legible Roman fonts had become common in the vernacular in France and Spain, and England followed suit in the 17th century, and then the Netherlands, and then Sweden. So Roman became the Western world's dominant form of writing, and Germany and German writing kind of stayed fairly resolutely committed to black letter, mostly thanks to Martin Luther, who was not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther, who was a prolific German writer, and he wanted to distinguish German writing from Catholic writing in the Roman style coming out of Italy. So fractors, had this kind of association with German nationalism, and it got stronger in the 19th century when Germany was invaded by Napoleon. So the occupying French had their Roman letters, and the Germans had Fraktur, and never the twain shall meet. Of course, then by the 20th century, with the rise of Nazism and the Nazi Party, the association, the reputation of the font started to diminish because it became very much associated with Nazi Germany. Ironically, Hitler, even though Mein Kampf, the Hitler Manifesto book, the cover is set in Fraktur, he didn't particularly like the font. He thought Germany shouldn't be so old-fashioned and deserved a newer font. But nevertheless, it kind of stayed pretty much associated with Germany, or august media properties like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I guess even the Sydney Morning Herald as well. And
Yeah.
heavy metal bands. That's the other. They're the
That's
other
true.
big users of Fraktur. So, but for many people, especially in Europe, black letter still has this kind of stain
Connotation.
of Nazism and the connotation. So therefore, it was super notable. Fast forward to just 2024, when Elon Musk wore a baseball hat, Make America Great Again baseball hat at Donald Trump's political rally in Madison Square Garden. It wasn't the usual red hat, it was a black hat, and Make America Great Again was set in Fraktur.
Oh.
I know, and, especially relevant since the Madison Square Garden had been famously used as the venue for the US Nazi Party in 1939 when they had a big rally in there. So mere coincidence or shit stir? I'm guessing it was a shit stir. So there's a story of that font.
That's interesting. Well,
Fraktur,
besides
Fraktur.
sounding like a sofa from IKEA, it's also kind of interesting that we've got this nationalism bound up with this typeface, and then in the early 20s, we've got the Bauhaus coming forward with Walter Gropius and these clean, minimal,
Yep.
serif-less typefaces that were coming out of the Bauhaus school. So,
Yeah. I'm
interesting.
I'm more in that camp, I have to say. So
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'll go with clean Gropius design anytime, and the stunning typefaces that they developed at that time. Interesting. Well, that's
interesting.
who knew that? I did not know about that. Thank you for sharing that, Remo.
That's
But
okay.
here's something that if you're over 35, you probably are all over this. There was a catchy little tune in the mid 1990s called Macarena. Remember it? What's that? You've left the
Hey,
room.
Macarena.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a Spanish dance slash song by Los Del Rio, and it became this huge international hit in the mid 90s. And a couple of guys, Antonio Romero and Rafael Ruiz, started performing together in Spain as Los Del Rio in 1966. And, they're just a couple of guys doing their Spanish songs, and they never imagined that they would be global phenomenons. And according to an interview with Spanish Vanity Fair magazine in 2015, the two guys saw a flamenco dancer by the name of Diana Patricia Cubullon. And they were so impressed by her moves that on the spot, they probably pulled out a serviette. They started writing the lyrics to this song that would ultimately become their
Mm.
biggest hit. And they named the girl in the song Macarena, who was named for Romero's daughter, Esperanza Macarena. Now, interestingly, as an aside, if you were there at a wedding or on a cruise ship dancing to Macarena, it might surprise you to learn that the lyrics actually tell the story of a promiscuous woman called Macarena who was unfaithful to her husband while he was away in the army. So it's
Indeed.
originally released in 1993, and it had a little bit of success, just under the radar. And then Bayside Boys did a remix, and they added this dookie 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 funky dance beat and English lyrics, and all of a sudden it's popular in the English speaking world. So much so that it tops the Billboard Top 100 chart for 14 weeks in
Mm.
1996, making it another record here the longest running number one hit in US chart history, one of. The song also was number one in many, many countries, including Australia, land of taste,
Mhm.
France, Germany, and Italy. So the catchy song had its own dance, which features
Special
these
dance.
simple arm movements and hip movements. And it was so simple and so catchy that didn't matter what age you were, everybody could catch onto it, and the rhythm was absolutely infectious. There was a time when Macarena was impossible to get away from. The New York Yankees set a world record, another, for the largest mass performance of Macarena, with 50,000 people swilling their hips in unison in 1996. So by 2022, this song has lost a lot of its glamour and glitz, and it was
Okay.
featured on a playlist used by New Zealand authorities to drive away anti-government protesters. It's kind of like
Oh
when they play
dear.
Barry Manilow
What
in
what
supermarkets to get people out.
ignominy.
And then there are said to be more than 4,700 unique versions of Macarena. So you go, hey, Macarena. What a song.
Did you watch the video? It's actually
Yes,
it holds up pretty well, doesn't it?
it's catchy.
Those
Yeah,
modelly looking gals still look pretty
doing the
modelly.
moves.
Yeah, doing the
Yeah,
moves.
and
Yeah.
and and the two guys on their microphone just singing it away. It's well cut. It's
Yeah.
a well
No,
edited clip. It's fun.
I that that idea came in from a customer. Thanks, Niels Benson, for that idea. It was near the deadline for that particular book, and Niels like lobbed this grenade in at the 11th hour, and I thought we've got to include Macarena. Speaking of 11th
Yeah, two.
hour, our
Oh,
time is our time is up. Our time is up. We don't
oh,
want to
the
go
old clock
over.
on the wall. Okay, okay.
So thanks for all of that, Claudia. That was a world record beating performance by the both of us. Lots of
Okay.
world records in there. All of these stories in our books available online at remorandum.com. Pick up your copy, subscribe so that you get our next book sent to you as well.
Yes, and of course that book is Remorandum. And if you've got great ideas like Nils, you can send us an email, hello@remorandum.com, or just jump on the website, as they say, jumping now, remorandum.com, and give us those great ideas. You might have some funny ideas for another story.
Another dance. Thanks, Claudia.
Hey, Macarena. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.